How does one restore trust in our political, medical, judicial, and other social systems when they're proving out to be fraudulent with every passing day? Well, look, the first thing is they've been proving out to be fraudulent to some degree every day throughout the entire span of human history. This is not new. It's an existential fact. It's a transcendental existential fact. And that's why there's an archetype of the tyrant. And we've used the archetype of the tyrant to represent the entire patriarchy. It's implicit in that term. The culture war right now is about whether or not the patriarchy is a tyrant. It's a symbolic battle. And the chaotic feminine is coming to demand the restructuring. That's what's playing out in our culture, but it's always playing out. That's why it's archetypal. That's why it's expressed in these deep symbols. It's not like I'm in favor of it exactly. It's just, as far as I can tell, that's how it is. So you're asking how you restore trust in our political, medical, judicial, and other social systems when they're proving out to be fraudulent. Well, first of all, you realize that that doesn't make your position unique. You've realized that. Well, how fraudulent are they? That's the real issue. And compared to what? Are they more fraudulent than you? I doubt it. So that's a good place to start. That's why, express my viewpoint that you start by cleaning up your own soul. And maybe you start with your room, which, by the way, you can look at my room. It's now clean, and I haven't just hidden the mess in the corner. So not that it couldn't use some more cleaning, because it certainly could, and so could I. But, really fraudulent? But what are you doing about it? Being morally appalled and putting yourself on a moral plane that in some sense supersedes social institutions themselves. So that's your claim. I'm a better human being than the average social institution is moral. Really? Really? You think that? Do you think that you're a better human being than the American court system, for example? All things considered. I understand it has its flaws. So I doubt that. So, and then the next thing I would say is, so they've been proving fraudulent forever, and mostly they're not fraudulent. Okay, so we got to keep that in mind, because they're fraudulent compared to our hypothetical ideal. But you have to be careful with that, because, if you're going to go around imposing the hypothetical ideal as the proper moral standard, well, then you have to live up to it, and good luck with that. But it also gives you carte blanche to, abandon the system because of its moral inadequacy, and also to claim that every action you take, which is in service of this hypothetical higher good, is justified because the higher good is so much higher. And so every iniquity on your part that can be justified by your hypothetical end is now permissible. And if you don't think the malevolent part of you will take advantage of that moral claim, then you don't know anything about malevolence. So now, what can you do about it? How does one restore trust in our political, medical, judicial, and other social systems? Well, I would say by acting as an honorable agent with integrity in all of your dealings, starting with your relationship with yourself, extending to your relationship with your intimate other, extending past that to your family, extending past that to your community, extending past that to the economic and political systems that you serve and that serve you. And so if you want to restore trust in the system, well, then start by being trustworthy. And that will help. That's what you can do. And, being trustworthy, that's no mean feat, right? That makes you really something. That makes you someone who can be relied on to keep their contractual obligations. It's a very powerful act. Don't mistake it for something trivial and local. It's to be a beacon on the hill is no trivial accomplishment. So get at it. And then the next thing I would say is, well, do you belong to a political party? Have you ever, Democrat or Republican, I don't care, have you ever contributed to the political, medical, judicial, and other social systems that you're decrying insofar as you're able? I mean, I've had some experience working with political parties when I was a kid, well, and later in life as well. but I had status by that point. But so we'll go back to when I was a kid, 14. I worked with the NDP, a socialist party in Alberta. And the doors were open, man. Believe me, these political parties, they're starving to death for committed individuals to help. So if you're concerned about these fraudulent social systems, it's like, hey, fix one. It's right there in front of you. There isn't a single political party in my country. There isn't a single political party in my country that wouldn't welcome a young person who wanted to contribute to making it better with open arms and great relief. And it's the same with the judicial, medical, and other systems. It's like, well, if you're concerned about fraudulence in the medical profession, you're really concerned about it, well, then maybe you should be a nurse or a doctor. Like, this is on you. It's not they. And maybe you can, when you listen to people talk and they keep talking about the they that's the problem, you got to ask yourself, well, are you sure it's they or is it us? Because most of the time it's us. And so, how much are you proving to be fraudulent with every passing day? That's the right question. And a couple of 100,000 non-fraudulent young people, well, that'd have a major impact. And so maybe you could start by being one of them. So this standing back as a young individual and criticizing the social system, it's a fool's game. It's like you're the beneficiary and the victim, but you're, the beneficiary as well as the victim. And if it's fraudulent, well, it's fraudulent to the same degree. No, it's less. It's less fraudulent than you. You can be virtually certain of that, at least when the system is functional, because it's functional and sometimes highly functional. So, allowing yourself to be disenchanted by that is just an excuse for not picking up your responsibility and getting the hell on with it. It's like the system's broken. Yeah, it's always been broken. The old man is blind. Yeah, he's always been blind. He speaks words of slogans. Yeah, well, that's always been the case. The ancient Egyptians had this figured out. The Mesopotamians before them had this figured out. It's not a new story. The old dying king is corrupt. Yeah, right. No kidding. That's why you rescue him from the belly of the beast. That's your goal as a job as an individual. So get at it. And don't let your cynicism confuse you into thinking that it's wisdom. It might be wisdom compared to naive optimism, but it's not true wisdom. True wisdom is you're the problem and then fix it. And if you want more reliable social institutions, well, start by becoming more reliable and then start working for the social institutions. So you might say, well, they're so fraudulent and corrupt that we need to replace them. It's like, yeah, then I think we just maybe not allow you the opportunity to do that, because really that's what you're going to do and that's going to work out well. What else has worked out well in your life? Oh, radical one. That segues into this question quite nicely. I've come to harbor some pessimistic beliefs about human nature. I'm young and optimistic about my future, but I've grown disenchanted by how I see others treat each other. How do you believe we can bring back optimism in human relationships? Well, of course you're going to be disenchanted because you were young and naive. And so being disenchanted is part of maturing. But the next part of maturing is to move forward optimistically as an axiom of your faith in mankind and yourself, as a recognition of your moral obligation to do so. Right? So now your eyes are open. You see, well, there's a snake in the garden. And Cain is your brother. Well, yeah, it's always been that way. Welcome to reality. So what do? You allow that to make you corrupt and nihilistic? Not if you think that it's the corruption and the nihilism that's the problem. So you're obligated to be optimistic in some sense, despite the evidence. And that's faith. So, pick up your cross and stumble uphill consciously. And you bring back optimism in human relations by structuring your own to the best of your possible ability. and that'll expand outward as you become more competent, move through your life. Be productive, generous, kind, discerning, wise, educated. Be a good father to everyone, not the tyrant that resentment breeds in your own heart. And that's an act of moral courage. And that's real maturity. So, and if you want an adventure, well, there's one for you.